You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Are you ready for summer break already? I can't believe the end of the school year is almost here, and for some of you, it's only a couple of weeks away. But before you completely check out, there's one thing I totally recommend that you do, and that's create an end-of-the-year report. So I have a special training for you guys on how to use an end-of-the-year report to improve your program and advocate for your role. So join me to learn the ins and outs of one of my all-time favorite data tracking tools, the end-of-the-year report, so you can interpret and showcase data to improve your program and advocate for your role. You guys, this is one of my favorite trainings to do. Counselors find it so helpful, and I just love helping you guys find the data on the work that you're already doing so you can show it to your stakeholders and really improve your program. You don't want to miss this. I have a few times available for you, so go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/data and find the time that works best for you. I'm going to have 2 or 3 times. This will be live. Please show up live, and if you do, you will receive a copy of an end-of-the-year report for absolutely free. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/data to sign up. See you there. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So go ahead and pause. If you did not listen to last week's episode, I encourage you to go back and start there because this is a 2-part series about diving into data. So last week I talked to you all about how to track that services provided data, and today I'm going to talk to you how to track student progress data. So like I said, if you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's episode, please go back and do so, then catch me over here because I think you're going to find it helpful when you have them all together. So last week we were talking about how to track the number of students that you've seen and the hours that you've served. So those are your services provided. Today we're going to talk about student progress. So we're not just like quantifying how many students you've seen, but we're quantifying how these students have improved or not improved as a result of your counseling services. And either way, it is helpful data. So there's 2 ways that I like to track this. First is through self-assessments. So you may have heard me talk about self-assessments before. They're basically a quick questionnaire that you give to students before and after each group or set of individual sessions, usually about 6 to 8 weeks. So you're going to do this during the first session and during the last session. And you're going to ask students some questions to assess how they're doing, and then you'll ask them the exact same question. So you want to be sure to track the dates on these. Then you'll compare the results to see how did their answers vary. Have they improved as a result of your counseling services, or have they not? Now, if they have improved, that's amazing. You can celebrate and then help them kind of graduate out of counseling. If they have not improved, then you need to reassess. Do they need to have more group counseling? Do they need to be moved to individual counseling? Do we need to do an outside referral? Do we need to provide some other kind of service? Do we need to tweak the way that we were delivering the sessions? Was it not resonating with that student? Maybe we need to tweak our self-assessment. Maybe we asked a question that we didn't cover. That has happened to me before. One time I had a question, it was like, I know what an inner coach is. And then I never taught them what that was. And they're like, we never learned what that was. I forgot. So you want to make sure, we're not perfect. But this is a good way to assess how your sessions are going and how the students are receiving the information and applying it. So what kind of questions do you include on a self-assessment? Well, there's 2 kinds here. You can do an objective-based question or a feelings-based question. So an objective-based question is a right or wrong answer that can be answered objectively. So for example, can you name 5 coping strategies? Yes or no? Or maybe you have them list them out. Can you write down 5 coping strategies? Maybe before your sessions, they only know take deep breaths. But maybe after your sessions, they know, take deep breaths, talk to an adult, go for a run, get a drink of water, do yoga, something like that. So that is a yes or no, right? They either know it or they don't know it. Pretty clear, black and white there. Or there are feelings-based ones. Now, these are more subjective, and there's no definitive correct answer. So something like, I feel sad more often than I feel happy. Or if it's self-esteem, maybe it's like, I love myself. I think I'm beautiful. So those are good, that's good information to have as well. Maybe at the beginning of your self-esteem group, they did not think they were beautiful and they did not love themselves, and now at the end they do. That's wonderful. So that shows us that their self-esteem has improved as a result of your counseling group. So I like to use a combo of the two. I just kind of mix them in the same self-assessment, but you could, most certainly do 2 separate self-assessments as well. Totally up to you. Now, when it comes to the objective ones, something I like to do when I'm sitting down to write a self-assessment is I don't like to start from scratch. I like to look at my counseling plan, so I'm looking at the weeks. Okay, I'm going to see these students for 6 weeks, and each session we're going to cover a different topic or a different objective, right? So maybe session 1 is like an introduction to self-control, and we're defining what is self-control. Well, I'm going to pick a statement for my self-assessment that reflects that objective. So it would be something like, I know what self-control is, yes or no. Then maybe in session 2, we're talking about self-control coping strategies. So then my question or my statement would be something like, I can name 3 coping strategies, yes or no. And then session 3, maybe we're talking about our support system. And so the self-assessment would say something like, I know who I can talk to when I'm feeling out of control, or I can name 3 people in my support system, yes or no. So do you see how I built the self-assessment very strategically based on what I'm teaching? This does a couple things. It helps you not start from scratch, and it helps you ensure that you're actually teaching what you're going to be quizzing them on, which is what I was saying with that example earlier. I had a question in my self-assessment that I didn't even cover with the kiddos. So I had to go back and add that in. You could do it either way. You could do your self-assessment first and then do your objectives after, but that seems kind of backwards to me. I like to have a plan for my sessions. What are we covering based on their needs, and you know their needs based on their referral. So you'll get a referral. It'll say, our kid needs help with self-control. You'll say, okay, here is this self-control individual set I'm going to do, and each week we're going to cover these different objectives, and I'm going to write the self-assessment based off those objectives. This way I can measure, how the student did. Maybe you see the student has improved in every week except 1 week, and you're like, oh, maybe that week, he didn't resonate with the activity that I did, something like that. So I love self-assessments. It's a really great way to get student-driven data. Now, I like to do these in paper or Google Form. I do a mix of both. The Google Form's nice because it timestamps it for you, and then you already have the data on there that you can turn into pretty graphs to use on like an end-of-the-year report. Speaking of, thank you to those of you who came to the training last night. It was awesome. You all got that free end-of-the-year report as well as the training on how to use it to improve your program and advocate for your role. It was so much fun. I hope you guys loved it. If you missed it, no worries. We're doing another one tonight and then potentially a third one as well. So go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/data to sign up and see the available times. I have a few different time slots so we can reach everyone regardless of time zone. Okay, time zone. Okay, so back to the self-assessments. Now, Google Forms, like I said, it's awesome for getting those pretty charts and graphs that you can later use on an end-of-the-year report. But you can do it manually as well. Just make sure you're getting student names and dates so you can compare them. Now, a couple things. If you're doing this in a group setting, I like to, encourage the kids to be honest. There's no right or wrong answer. So in a group setting, I like to give them a clipboard and let them kind of leave the circle table or kidney table, go to a private spot of the room to do it. That way they can, be honest and authentic, and they don't have to worry about other kids looking at their answers. That's kind of a trick that I like to do for the groups. Okay, so that's all about self-assessments. I'll link to some self-assessment templates I have for you guys in the show notes. Now let's talk about the second data tool that I love to use to measure student progress, and that is a behavior progress monitoring survey. Now this is another way that you can quantify student progress, and it's a long name, but these are really quite simple. Sometimes I just call them behavior surveys or behavior progress monitoring forms, whatever you want to call them. But where the self-assessments were student-driven data, these are parent-teacher-driven data. So just as you send out a self-assessment, I like to send these forms and surveys to parents and teachers before and after sessions. So first session, send it to them, and after. I actually like to attach this to the permission slip, or if you send like an info sheet about what you're going to be doing with the student, that way you're like, here, I want your kid to come to counseling. Please tell me that's okay, and please fill out this form. Now, again, paper or digital works. Digital is sometimes better because you can just shoot the parents a link to a Google form and they can just complete it, quickly. Sometimes that's easier for people than sending back the paper, and then you don't have to worry about it getting lost in the black hole of a backpack, or about privacy concerns, if other kids see the forms. So I like to do these digitally as well, or you can stick them in the teacher mailbox. Whatever works best for you. The main thing is we want to get them done. Now, this is where parents and teachers are going to share how they think the student's doing or what behaviors they're seeing in the classroom and at home. Now, I'd love to get both. It takes a little effort to get them both back, but it's really helpful to have the picture at home as well as the picture at school, because then you can compare the two. So, for example, let's keep with that self-control example. They could say, my son knows how to respond when he's feeling out of control, or responds appropriately when feeling out of control. Or the student can show a coping strategy in the classroom when feeling overwhelmed. And they're going to answer on a scale of like sometimes, almost always, never, And then you can use that data to see where the deficits are. And it's interesting just to get a picture across the board. Like maybe it's very consistent at home and school. Or maybe the student's doing a lot better at home than at school, or vice versa. It's really good to get that full picture, as well as use it with the students' self-assessments, because then you can see, the students said that they can name coping strategies, but the parents are saying they're not seeing it at home, and the teacher's saying they're not seeing it in the classroom. Then you can kind of, check in and see where is the disconnect. So like I said, send these before and after sessions, but you can also send one like at the halfway point just to see how things are improving. But I love these forms. Like I said, it takes a little effort to get them back, but once you do, the data is so powerful. And then at the end, it's so cool to see the parents say, like, before, they didn't know how to handle their frustration, but now they do. Or for the teacher to say, as a result of your counseling services, they now can help themselves calm down when they're feeling overwhelmed in the classroom. It's really powerful stuff. And it really just advocates for your role just to send these out in general, because the teachers and parents aren't like, I wonder what they're doing with that counselor lady since they're missing class time. Instead, they're like, oh, wow, she's got it together. She's sending these fancy forms and she's tracking things. This isn't just random. They're not just randomly doing Jenga or puzzles in there. Like, this is a data-driven program that she's implementing. Okay, guys, so I love these. And then, of course, with the self-assessment and the behavior forms, you're going to use the feedback and the data that you've collected to adjust and tweak your program to best serve student needs. So why should you be collecting data? You're like, this kind of sounds like a lot. I don't know. I'm a little overwhelmed. Collecting data allows you to do two things. It allows you to advocate for your role and for your program, and it allows you to assess and fine-tune your services to best meet your student needs. Both these things help you increase your impact, help more kiddos, and help you get the recognition that you deserve. Again, these are the two things I talk about you can do with an end-of-the-year report as well, and that training. If you missed it last night, I really hope you'll join us tonight. It's going to be awesome. If you are interested in this kind of stuff, you're really going to love it. But don't be scared to collect data. If you listen to these episodes, I hope you're feeling empowered and excited about collecting data. Check out the links in the show notes to get some templates so you don't have to start from scratch. It's May, but use this info as you're thinking about how you want to plan your program for next year, or how you can even wrap up your program this year. Maybe you didn't send pre-test. Maybe you didn't send a pre-self-assessment, or maybe you didn't send out behavior surveys already, but you can still send out one if you're mid-services and then post-services. At least you're getting some data. Or just send out the post-test and just see, even if you don't have the pre-test to compare it to, you can at least see, can you name 3 coping strategies, yes or no? Maybe you get a yes. We don't know if they could have before services, but at least we know they can now. So it's a good way to just kind of practice sending out the data now. That way, when August rolls around, you are ready to rock. All right, guys. Hope I'll see you at the training if I didn't see you there last night. And check out the links in the show notes, and we will talk next week. See ya.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.